Hey guys, Gretchen here. Welcome back to the Body Positive vidcast. Get a pen and paper out because today we are talking about some really important things which, if listened to and applied, can drastically change your life and help you achieve some health goals that have maybe been evading you. So if we have never met before, my name is Gretchen Gegg. I am the Body Positive Fit Coach, and what that means is I help you achieve all kinds of health and wellness goals without losing sight of loving yourself in the process. And I know that can seem like a really foreign concept. And I'm not talking about loving what you see in the mirror every single day. I'm talking about truly and actually loving who it is you are and being the best that you can be. So today we are talking diet and exercise, but ditching that toxic treadmill of working out and like eating clean, all these things that we hear, which honestly, they're great. The initial thought behind them is great, but people take them and run with them and make them crazy. And we end up with things like disordered eating patterns, body dysmorphia. And I think today's the day we put an end to some of that. And I show you how you can still achieve these health goals, but do it in a way that makes sense. So buckle up. Let's get ready to ride. We are talking about macros managed today. Both micronutrients and micro movements. Both of those things we're talking about today. I'm going to show you how it's different than a macronutrient or a macro movement and why it's important. And then also how to very, very simply start incorporating these into your life. And stay tuned till the very end because I'm announcing something really awesome and totally brand new. So don't go anywhere. Let's talk about macros first. We have to understand what macros are if we're ever going to get into the micros. What is a macro? So macros are usually, most often we hear of macros in terms of macronutrients. And you may have seen people on social media like tracking their macros, where what that means is you want a certain percentage of each macronutrient. So you try to eat in order to satisfy that percentage every day. Super helpful if you're doing some very specific training. Bodybuilders do this all the time. Look up some of the big fitness or just, hashtag like what is the, maybe bodybuilding even would get it to you. And you'll start to see people like eating for macros, and you see this macro and it sounds very like elusive and elitist when it's very, very, very simple. A macronutrient is simply anything that you eat that satisfies your caloric intake, which can be, a variety of numbers depending on how much you weigh, how much you work out, what your goals are. We're not even going to touch that number, but if you read on the back of a nutrition label, it usually says percent of daily value, and it's talking about the percent of maximum macronutrient intake. Macronutrients satisfy caloric goals. There are only 3 macronutrients. Only 3. Can't get around it. There is carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And yes, we need all of them. Now we know that we can eat a certain way that will make our body use glycogen or whatever carbohydrate, it's a carbohydrate heavy fuel and it's preferred by our body. Or we can eat in a way that promotes our body to burn fat. Now, will you still lose fat if you eat and burn glycogen? Absolutely. So we're not demonizing anything today. I'm just explaining. Macronutrients, there's only 3, carbs, proteins, and fats. They are the macronutrients that provide us energy, and that's it. Put it aside. Now you know what a macronutrient is. Put it aside because we are going to talk about micro in a second. That's what macronutrients are. Now on the other side of that, right? Your physical activity, you have macro movements. And again, there's only 3 in my book. Now, you can get really detailed with both of these and like complex carb, simple carb, fat heavy protein, lean protein. You can do all of that, but very, very simply, there's only 3 and 3. Macro movements, there's only 3 types: cardio, strength, and flexibility or range of motion. So cardiovascular, working out your heart, which is a muscle, working out your lungs, right? Heart and lungs together. We're getting this workout that strengthens them and keeps them active, their muscles. And then you have your strength, which is your musculoskeletal muscles, and of course your bones, right? Usually our strength includes things that are also putting us under our bones under stress, which keeps them strong. Stress can be a good thing for our bones. So cardio and strength. And then range of motion or flexibility. How is our body moving? Are we able to continue moving? There's the thought that if I can touch my toes now, if I do it every day, I'll still be able to do it when I'm 80 years old. And there is some truth to that. We have to train for flexibility. This is also where if we don't train for it, injuries show up. We hear a lot about older people breaking hips. We'll just use that as an example. It tends to be something associated with older populations, and then that it's a very, very bad thing. Well, part of the reason that hips are breaking is like there's some osteoporosis, so maybe they haven't been doing any body weight strengthening, even just walking, and they don't have the range of motion, so they've done things like fallen or whatever. They're not used to moving in that way, and then the complications then revert back to cardiovascular because maybe they're not working their lungs as much, and when they go into the hospital or the nursing home, or if they're not moving around a lot, they could develop pneumonia. So the importance of the macronutrients, our macro movements, are really health related, just like macros, right? So we're like health and health. But we're going to throw those out the window for today because I want to tell you how that if you can manage your micros, you don't have to worry so much about the macros. They just come with the territory, and how in some ways the micros are more important because we aren't just satisfying this general need. We're getting to what we actually need for our body, and very specific to meeting and reaching health goals, not just not dying. Does that make sense? So our macros are important, and keeping them in check will maybe keep us from dying. But if we really want good quality of life, we are going to dive deeper into those micros. Let's talk about micronutrients first. So these are things that are in food that don't necessarily provide us calories. Take, for example, French fries and a massive Caesar salad that are the exact same caloric output, right? Like our intake, same caloric intake. But we're kind of one simple thing over here with the French fries, whereas on this hand with the salad, we've got like some fiber. We maybe have a variety of nutrients, and different things are in this salad. So we're satisfying more micronutrients. And I said Caesar, but let's do like a Cobb. You're thinking tomato and egg and maybe some olives on it and some cheese, right? So you've got a whole variety of different foods here. Even though they're the same caloric intake, your body is going to be able to use not just the calories that are in this salad, but all the vitamins and minerals and fiber and even water that's provided by the salad that maybe aren't provided by the French fries. And you intuitively, and just because you've lived, you know this. You're like, oh, that's why I say a salad's good food and fries are bad food. We don't say good and bad in the body positive world. Not at all. We just say, hey, this one's a lot higher in micronutrients, or it's more nutrient dense. So that's just kind of an introduction to why micronutrients are important. This can be so overwhelming though, because you're thinking, okay, micronutrients. Now I have to think about vitamins, what vitamins I need, what vitamins I'm lacking in. You have to think about minerals, right? Like even simple things like sodium and potassium. You guys, your muscles, they work on these things called sodium, potassium pumps. You have to have both in your diet in the right amounts to make them work properly. Your body's smart. It kind of does a lot for you. You also need to think about fiber. That's another micronutrient. And water. So you've got these 4 things, and you could drive yourself up the wall trying to satisfy all these micronutrients. But I'm here to tell you why we need to be concerned, and I'm going to give you the top 4 that help cover the rest of them. Okay, really top 5 because water's included. So first of all, when we're looking at micronutrients, we want to be most concerned about those micronutrients that decrease inflammation, that will help us decrease inflammation, which is, your cells just kind of on alert throughout your body. They're detecting danger, detecting invasion. That's okay. That's like a little more like maybe virusy, but they're detecting something that they have to work and fight against. So we can get this systemic inflammation in the body, and you may have heard a little bit about it, but you can result in joint pain and bloated bellies and all this stuff. But to decrease inflammation, there are certain micros that we want to think about taking in. Also, we really want to support our hormones. This is especially for women. Now, I do specialize in coaching women. It's not all who I coach, but I specialize in coaching women. And we want to really make sure that what we're eating is supporting our hormones, because we know as women, our hormones naturally fluctuate. So if we can decrease that fluctuation just a little bit or make our bodies not fight our foods, it's really nice. So sit back, let me give you a nice little strategy for increasing the micronutrients that you need. So first of all, I want you to really, if you've never looked at what you eat, and then if you did, if it was only calories, I want you to throw that macro out the window. If you are going to implement anything that we are talking about today, let it be just this micro. Don't worry about caloric intake. So if you're wanting to try this, try to eat to improve your micronutrients, to see what that does to your body. Here's the ones that I want you to look at. Number 1 is water. Of course, I want you to look at water and make sure you're monitoring your intake. This does not mean drinking 8 gallons of water. This is tiny. That was a horrible example. But it doesn't mean drinking a ton of this water. What it means is monitoring your hydration level, simply looking at your pee. Okay, it sounds weird, sounds gross. But first off, if you're peeing a ton and it's perfectly clear, you are overhydrating your body. You don't need that much water. I think the rule of thumb is half your body weight in ounces, but even that, depending on your activity level, can be a lot. So instead, I want you to just drink some water and then notice if your pee is very dark or has a very high odor, then maybe up your water intake a little bit, but figure out how much you are drinking. Don't be obsessive about it, but figure out how much you are drinking. Here's what I like to do for my water is I like to have 3 water bottles filled up every day that are between 20 and 25 ounces. Doesn't have to be very specific. I think this one might be like 15. It's not very much at all. It doesn't even say. But have them filled up and ready to go. And then your goal is to complete them. So have one that you drink early in the morning. I get up early and work out, so I like to have mine done by breakfast. Have another one that's done by lunch. Have another one that's done by dinner. So it will give you a nice consistent intake of water. But please try not to get in that trap of like, I've got to complete a gallon, so you're chugging like 30 ounces right before you go to bed. That's going to mess with your sleep. And sleep is important too. So water is first. And then fiber is second. Things that are high in both soluble and insoluble fiber, which you don't really have to calculate that much because just fiber is generally on the nutrition labels. So insoluble fiber is the stuff that you associate with going to the bathroom, like your poop. You associate insoluble fiber, things that your body is not going to digest very well, which is okay because we're meant to eat it. It kind of sweeps our intestines, right? It cleans everything out. And then soluble fiber, this is the fiber that's associated with heart, like reducing the risk for heart disease. So this is actually soluble, like it sounds like, and it's able to be used in your body. It's not just a sweeper of the intestines. But if you look up foods high in fiber, you'll find it. You'll find insoluble and soluble all just in one big list. So water and fiber, I hope you're writing this down. Number 3 is vitamin D. Now this is not supplements, mind you. I'm not licensed to tell you what supplements to eat. These are just foods that are high in vitamin D. And I'm not going to list them out because you can go look at Google. You just need to write down vitamin D. Also, getting out in the sun. This is why it's important to work out outside, or not work out. You can work out if you want to, but get outside and move outside some is because you are able to get vitamin D from sunlight. This is also some of the thought that's coming out now behind us not being like slathered in sunscreen every second of the day. If you're taking small breaks outside in the morning and evening, potentially going without sunscreen, and I know now everyone's going to tell me that I'm awful and I think you should have skin cancer. Not the truth. You should not be getting sunburn. Your skin has natural defenses for small doses of sunlight, but it also helps you intake vitamin D. Now, if you go to the pool in the middle of the day without sun protection, you are going to get burned, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about short doses, morning and evening. I always think about jaundice. I don't know if anyone else is going to resonate with this, but both of my children had jaundice. And in our country, they put them under bilirubin lights to help process the bilirubin to get out of their system. But in other countries, they're just told, hey, take the baby outside in the sunlight in like certain hours of the day. And I think even when I was little, like I had jaundice and that was what they told my mom, but that's how it's treated. So there is a component for sunlight. Sunlight is not all evil. If you're smart about it, just like anything else, right? You can have some French fries. Don't eat them all the time. You can be in the sun. Don't go out there and get burned. So that's a really good way to get vitamin D as well. Not just food, but there's certain foods that are high in vitamin D. Last two, omega-3, and then magnesium. So a little omega-3 is the one that you're going to find, omega-3 fatty acid, if you want to write that after it. You're going to find a lot of like oily fishes, but other things too, things that will surprise you like flaxseed and chia seed. And then magnesium, here's a little fun thing too. You can get it orally, but your skin also absorbs it really well. So if you want an excuse to take a luxurious bath, go take a bath and use Epsom salts, not just like random salt. Although sea salt in the bath, good for you too. I put both in mine. I put some sea salt and then I put Epsom salt. This is sometimes sold as a foot soak, right? Really good way to get that nutrient as well. Kind of a more natural way than having a supplement. Nothing's wrong with supplements, but we do want to we have to eat, right? We have to eat. So what this whole idea is eating what's going to feed us back. So let's revisit the 5. Your goal is to create a shopping list. Go look up these 5. Water, already know about that one. But then vitamin D, fiber, omega-3, and magnesium. If you can create a shopping list that has those 4, like just look up what foods that are high in those things individually, not all 4, individually, and just write down all the foods that you like. That can be your shopping list, and don't count your macros. Just make some meals out of that food. And I want to know how that makes you feel, making sure that we're including the water. Water is very important as well. So there's the micros. How are we going to eat to feel better, concerning ourselves with micros versus the macros, which were always talked about. Maybe not so much the micros. On the other hand, let's look at activity. Now, the macros, first of all, you have to be moving, period. We have to do some kind of movement daily, really daily. People say, take a rest day. Well, maybe a rest from a organized workout, but not a rest day from movement. We should move our bodies every day. They are made to move. We are mechanical machines designed to do all these beautiful things, and sometimes we don't let it. But you should be satisfying the big 3. So in this case, you should look and make sure you're doing something that has a cardiovascular component, it uses some kind of body weight for strength, and then also that we're doing something for flexibility. So number 1 here is make sure we're satisfying the macros. But this is where we want to really look deeply. We can't just satisfy those macros. We can, but we're not going to see as the bigger benefits. We're not going to see our health increase. We're just going to see ourselves not get sick. So for micro movements, this is things like coordination, being able to move in a coordinated pattern. This is sometimes associated with like hand-eye coordination, maybe if you're playing a racket sport. If you're like me and you love Group X, this could be as simple as moving to the beat of music, but it's something that is involving your brain and your movement, and it's sparking those neural pathways, making them continue to move together so that we, this is even good in things like Parkinson's, like not preventing, but if you have Parkinson's, like implementing some kind of coordinated movement will help keep the body used to moving, and delay some of the severity of the symptoms. Ballroom dancing is very, very highly encouraged for Parkinson's patients just for this reason, right? It's coordination. And not only that, ballroom, you're using someone else's body as well, and you're having to time and everything. So ballroom dancing is really good. Another micro movement is balance. So I feel like balance should be a macro movement, but they have not shifted that into the health-related physical fitness. But my goodness, guys, we've got to practice our balance. And this, I know you may have heard, something as simple as standing on one leg while you brush your teeth really, truly does help. But also balance of movement. Are we doing on the right what we do on the left? I am mother of a young child, and I can tell you this bicep right here, because I hold my kids on this side, is way stronger than this bicep because I have a little bit of imbalance in my movement pattern. So coordination, balance, agility. This is things like lateral movement. If you always walk, run, bike, swim, I'm like in triathlon mode here. If you're doing this forward stuff, it's like, what, sagittal plane? Front plane, sagittal plane? I always get my planes confused. I know transverse. But if we're doing all this stuff, just moving forward, then we have detrained inadvertently some of the muscles that support us in our lateral movement. So we have to have some lateral movement, maybe even moving backward, things like that, for our agility. That's really important. There's two more. There's a lot of these micro movements that enhance our life. Speed. So how fast can you go? This is an easy one to implement because caveat, easy to implement if you're already moving, because we can just say, okay, how fast can you move now? How fast can you go? Pick up the speed a little bit. So challenging yourself a little bit with that speed. This can also be implemented with the next one, which is reaction time. So reaction time, how quickly do we react? Super important as you age. Think about car wrecks, for example. Are we able to see what's happening? And does our body know without us having to go, there is a car wreck, put your foot on the brake, right? Are we so coordinated? Is our body so in tune with what's being visually processed that our reaction time has not suffered? And there's ways to practice this. Like here, this is kind of a fun one. Let's see if I do it. You can have somebody else, you can even hold it. Drop it and catch it. Drop it and catch it. Drop it and catch it. Try that. I'm really impressed that I did that 3 times without dropping it like a crazy person. Because I was like, I hope this works like I planned, because usually if I'm doing something, I can do it a million times. I do it in front of people and it's like, so that's a quick way to practice it. Or you can have someone else drop it and you can try to catch it. That's an actual reaction time test, by the way. Use a ruler. So there you go. Practice your reaction time. And that too, reaction time, here's the beautiful thing, is that if you're clever, so you know how I said like the micronutrients, you need to look them all up individually and then come up with a shopping list. If you're clever, your micro movements though can all be combined into one activity or a couple activities. For example, I have an on-demand and a live fitness component to my site, GretchenGag.com, the bodypositive fitness site. There's a virtual yoga studio and there's also on-demand fitness. So within those activities, let's take one of our on-demand is FIT. So it's a combination of cardiovascular movement and yoga. You are going to get coordination because you're going to be moving to the beat. There's always balance thrown in. There's always lateral movement. I will encourage you to stay on beat, which challenges your speed, and sometimes there's intervals as well. And then reaction time, you are watching me, copying me, and moving to a beat. You're using reaction time. So if you're clever, your workout will incorporate all of those things. And I will tell you this right now. This is why you don't really need to be doing all unguided fitness. Like, this is why people have made such a living on progressing other people like personal trainers, group fitness instructors. This is why we do what we do. This is why our profession exists, is because we can give you all of this stuff without you having to come up with it on your own, because that's very, very difficult. People want you to think it's very, very easy because it's your body and you can move it, you can do what you want, but it is very difficult to understand all of the micro movements and be able to incorporate them. Can you? Abso-freaking-lutely. You can. You can do all of this on your own. I'm just telling you an easier way to do it. The easiest way, I'll tell you right now, is something that I have going on this summer. It enrolls in, let's see, I don't know when this is going to air, but it's going to enroll June 13th is the last day to get in, because it's our first meeting of 2021. And you will have planned for you your micros managed through the whole thing. Your micros movement, and movement starts from day one. You get full access to all the on-demand and all the live fitness. So you can 24/7 access to complete micro movement handled fitness classes. And then you also are going to move slowly into a full meal planned, micros managed nutrition protocol. I say ease into it because we do start gradually kind of looking at what we're eating. And we have to get our body used to some of this, because I don't know if you're familiar with the gut microbiome, but our gut is made up of all these basically little organisms, right? And what proliferates right now in your gut is whatever likes what you always eat. That's like I hope that's an easy enough way to explain it. So if you are used to eating, like I said, the Caesar salads, then your gut is going to be okay with eating those Caesar salads, because the little organisms in there that proliferate digest that stuff well. However, if you've been eating like the French fries mostly, and you go and eat a Caesar salad, you might see things like bellyache, diarrhea, things like that, because you have not repopulated that gut microbiome yet, and it's not ready to work, basically. And we have to repopulate it through what we're eating. We cannot just eat like crap and then take some kind of probiotic. It just doesn't work like that. Probiotics absolutely help, but we have to back them up by giving our body what it needs. So my protocol takes you through the summer, and we're going to gradually build up into the point where you're able to handle the shopping list. And I give you the foods. I don't make you go find them on your own. Not like I don't mail you zucchini, but I give you the food list, and you create your own shopping plan from that. But I also give you meals and talk about meal planning and make super simple that. So we are going to do an entire micromanage program together. And I want you to go right now. I'll put the link to all this down in the description. But if you go right now to GretchenGegg.com/Hot Girl Summer, you can read about all this. And yes, we are calling it Hot Girl Summer because this year we are taking back that Hot Girl Summer. It is no longer 2019. We're not talking about girls in bikinis. We're talking about real people feeling like a hot girl. So I hope that you got a lot out of this vidcast. Please comment below with any questions or anything that you'd like to know more about. I'm always looking about what to talk about on future episodes. So let me know what you think. And until that time, don't forget, when you look in the mirror, that person looking back is your best friend and your hype girl. So love yourself, and I'm the Body Positive Fit Coach.